On today's show, a Scotty Barnes burner in Philly. The Clippers show up late to the party, and a French ejection in Utah. Nick Angstadt, Adam Mares on today's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome. You are Locked On to the NBA. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast. And joining me, as always, on a Friday, host of Locked On Nuggets from DNVR. What you got for me, Adam Mares?
A Scotty Barnes burner. We're going to let that slide. We're just going to sneak that one in as we start our Friday. Wow.
It was a cold open coming in hot is what it was.
It's actually good. I actually approve. I don't know what I'm complaining about. It was a Scotty Barnes burner.
This episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's an unofficial community center. A big thank you to our friends at McDonald's for always being there. I'm loving it. All right, let's get into today's episode. We are going to break down the 3 games from Thursday night. Great games. All 3 of these games I thought were really good. I enjoyed all of them. I got to see most of all of them, which I love 3 games in one night. I would hate to do what they did last night, which was like 13 games in one night.
Right.
But let's start with the one that, I mean, just the hugs heard around the world, I guess.
Oh my gosh.
The Indiana Pacers beat the Utah Jazz in Utah, 111-100. We have the scuffle, the kerfuffle, whatever you want to call it, late in the game, where Myles Turner blocks Rudy Gobert, and Rudy Gobert grabs Myles Turner's shorts on his way down from the falls down, and they both hit the ground at the same time. Then they both get up, and they're exchanging looks, exchanging unpleasantries, I guess. And then Myles Turner comes over and just gives him a little shoulder shove, just a little shoulders, not even full arm extended, just shoulder shove. And then Rudy Gobert turns around and just hugs him, and they go back and forth, and neither person wants to extend their arms. They just hug each other, and they spend a little bit of time there, and then all of a sudden the other teams realize on the other end, TJ McConnell hits a jumper. No one's going to remember TJ McConnell hit a jumper during this, but the rest of the teams come out, and then they storm each other, and Donovan Mitchell comes out of nowhere and it starts pushing people, and then Joe Ingles from the top rope comes in and just shoves Ed Malloy as far as he can across the huddle, and then guys get ejected. Indiana goes on to win the game. What should we take from this scuffle?
Since we're starting with this scuffle, if we can even call it that, it's funny because it is coming on the heels, obviously, of Jokic's and Markieff Morris's real fight. That's for an NBA standards, an actual, one guy needed a stretcher at one point.
Yeah, no one's getting whiplash from this fight.
No whiplash from this one for sure. There was no stretchers called.
No.
But no, this one, it was actually kind of hilarious, to be honest with you, because you could tell that both guys were like, I have to look like I want to fight, but I can't actually fight. And it was very awkward. As you mentioned, it was more of a dance than it was a wrestling. And Joe Ingles, honestly, is the only guy that kind of came in hot. Like, are we doing this or what? And
Joe Ingles, there's got to be some kind of history with him and Ed Malloy. There has to be, right? Because he literally if you watch the video, he comes out of nowhere, flies in, and his target is Ed Malloy, which Ed Malloy afterwards said that it wasn't intentional, which is probably going to save Joe Ingles a suspension. But he comes in and just shoves the referee Ed Malloy across the pile.
One question you might ask here, and I actually want to talk about this game because some interesting basketball stuff. But before we get there, this is 2 fights in 1 week. Fights in air quotes here, because I mean, by
sure.
NBA standards, if this was hockey, it would just be like the referee skate around and say, "Let's do your thing." But these were fights that you don't see in the NBA very often. And one of the storylines this year is that it's more physical. They're allowing more contact on the perimeter, and I just wonder if this is a natural sort of, hey, the game gets to be a little more chippy, then you're going to have guys that take it a little bit too far, a little too personally. I don't know. It's early, but it's at least something I've got my eye on.
Yeah, we had the Damian Lillard comments like, "Hey, I'm getting all these fouls that you're not calling and
that
all
doesn't
this."
Count. Those don't count.
No,
complaining
I'm
about the fouls.
I'm saying that they're allowing this extra contact that
Right.
apparently Damian Lillard can tell, and he's very upset about it. And so they're allowing this extra contact, which is then turning into incidental contact, which is then turning into, you know, guys getting upset at each other. Myles Turner, Rudy Gobert going at it basically this whole game back and forth. Rudy Gobert continues to Rudy Gobert. Like I mean, grabbing the shorts on the way down was just the nail in the coffin that was going to make this actually happen. And then afterward, the refs were just calling technicals over and over. Like, so
4 people tossed, right?
yeah,
4
so
people.
so Turner got ejected, Gobert got ejected, Donovan Mitchell got ejected for escalating things. Joe Ingles, the same exact thing, got ejected for escalating things. And then later, like Hassan Whiteside gets a technical for like almost nothing. And then I think Kalan Martin also got a technical for almost nothing after that. They're like, let's just throw them around now. But I think they're really trying to rein it in because I think the refs are aware of this extra contact and stuff you were talking about.
And I mean, it's just something to kind of monitor. You know, these games have been more intense. I think the basketball's been great, Nick. I really do. Yeah. And I don't want these rules to go away. I do think it has elevated the intensity of the games. But guess what? The NBA needed an injection of intensity during the regular season. And I think we're getting that. And some of that, there's a lot of factors. I know everybody's going to point to just that. I think there's a lot of factors. One of those factors is there's 5 bad teams in the NBA right now. Everybody else is good. I mean, they're at any given night. We saw tonight. We're going to talk. You know, this game, the Pacers beat the Jazz. You would think on paper, okay, the 23rd best team versus the 3rd best team. That's, you know, that shouldn't be an even match, but it is on any given night. Now, there's just so much talent. If we shift gears and talk about this game, there was something pretty interesting that I think happened in this one. The Clippers have sort of exposed the flaw of the Utah Jazz in the playoffs, and that is that if you get a team that can switch 1 through 5. You know, you can kind of stymie the pick and roll, the Rudy Gobert rolling to the rim, Donovan Mitchell coming off the screen and scoring. You could kind of stymie that a little bit. And the Clippers executed it because they were designed to be a switch 1 through 5 team. The Indiana Pacers are not, but tonight they were able to do it anyway. They were able to switch and really get under the skin. Now, look, the Pacers were a desperate team. They really needed a win, but the Jazz kind of needed a win, even though they weren't desperate. They have lost now 3 out of 4. And I look at this game and I go, man, that's not a good sign that the Utah Jazz are struggling with the one thing that has been their fatal flaw for the last 2-3 seasons.
Yeah, well, I mean, with the Pacers, you have now Brogdon and Duarte, who are both like pretty big guards. So
yeah, that's true.
They're not necessarily switching everything, but and then you have Myles Turner, who's one of the best defenders in the NBA around.
Having a great year, man. He's been impressive, and he had some blocks tonight too.
So those two things, plus like they have these wings and Justin Holiday and Kalan Martin and Torrey Craig, and like they have a bunch, and TJ McConnell, I guess he's more of a guard, but you have all these wings that can just fly around, and all of a sudden you have like the makings of a pretty good defense, plus a smart coach and Rick Carlisle that knows how to use players and put role players in the right positions. The thing about this game for the Jazz, and this is the Jazz first loss at home this season, is they can't score unless Donovan Mitchell is like out there doing his thing. Like coming into this game, I was looking up some of the numbers. The Jazz's offensive rating when Mitchell is on the floor, 120 points per 100 possessions. When he's off the floor, 107 points per 100 possessions. Like they just cannot, they can't find anything when he's off the floor right now. Jordan Clarkson struggled to shoot in this game. Mike Conley was not great in this game, and he had a couple buckets late, but they really couldn't get anything going. Joe Ingles hasn't been able to run the pick and roll the way that he has in the past. And so they got to find something else here. One of those guys, either Clarkson or Conley or Ingles, either has to start stepping up for them.
My last notes on this game, I to me, it was probably the most interesting just in where the teams were at, what it means. But Donovan Mitchell wore a locked on shirt in the post game. That was pretty cool. The Pacers went 2-2 on a tough road trip. They've had a really hard start. If you look statistically, they should be 500 or better, but they're not. They had a really unlucky start to the season. But they go 2-2 to kind of salvage their season in some ways on this road trip, and maybe they can start to stabilize. Utah, meanwhile, has lost, like I said, 3 of 4, and they played the Miami Heat, who have also lost a couple games in a row here. So you get Saturday on Saturday, those two teams match up in Utah. That's going to be a heck of a game, man. That might be the game of the weekend. 2 teams that desperately need a win to kind of stabilize, like teams that 1 week ago, top of the power rankings.
Yeah.
This week, stumbling, and they both need to stabilize. So that'll be a heck of a battle.
Oh, the NBA is so good right now. I'm so happy for it. All right, coming up, we'll get into some more games. Sixers, Raptors, really interesting one. And then the Heat, Clippers was just, I mean, came down to the wire there. Kyle Lowry was incredible. We'll talk about both those teams, all those teams coming up. And then we got our power rankings, the top 5 fan bases because of something the Clippers did that I found absolutely hilarious. We'll talk about that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about McDonald's. This episode is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving community since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's a place where family and friends can come to reconnect. It's a place where after you hug it out with your friend on the basketball court, when you're going at it, when he pulled you down because he pulled you from your shorts, you can just go get a burger afterwards. I'm sure that's what Myles Turner and Rudy Gobert got to do. What do you think Rudy Gobert's order is at McDonald's?
Rudy Gobert's order at McDonald's.
Is he a Big Mac guy?
I'm gonna go with like 7 Happy Meals.
Yeah, something just really weird. Like he's got he's going there. He's getting the Disney toys. They got the 50th anniversary, I think, right now. He's like, I got to get all the different ones. I got to find all the different ones. Go to McDonald's, hang out there yourself. Head to your local McDonald's to refuel and reconnect. And somebody say, Locked On NBA watch party. We can watch Rudy Gobert order his 7 Happy Meals next time we go. Also, I want to tell you about BetOnline.ag, the fastest and easiest way to put down some money on sports. If you want to put down some money on the NBA this weekend, go ahead and use the promo code Locked On. You'll get a 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Lakers Timberwolves. Let's just pick a random game here. Lakers 3.5-point favorite over the Timberwolves. That is not a line I thought I would see this early in the season, but the Lakers have struggled. The Timberwolves have been okay to decent. And so
no, they're on a 6-game losing streak, the Timberwolves. They've fallen off the face of the earth.
They have fallen recently. True. Yeah, that's very true. But Timberwolves falling off the earth. Lakers only a 3.5-point favorite at home. Interesting line. If you want to put some money down on it, go to betonline.ag. Again, promo code Locked On. All right, Adam Mares, let's get into the rest of these games. Let's go to Miami versus the Clippers. This one was an awesome game down the stretch. A great game that we've seen so far this season. Clippers win 112-109. Kyle Lowry enters the fourth quarter with 3 points, ends the game with 25 points. So he had an absolutely awesome fourth quarter. Jimmy Butler did not play in this game. If he did, I think the Heat would have probably come away with a win, but Kyle Lowry did his damnedest to get a win in this game, and they just couldn't get it.
Markieff Morris also absent from this game, still recovering from whiplash.
Whiplash.
Look, Kyle Lowry had been in a little bit of a rut. You know, he went scoreless against Denver earlier this week. So for him, maybe this is a bit of an end to a little mini slump, a little micro slump that he has been in. Bam did start that game, I know, incredibly hot. He finished with 30 and 11. But the Clippers get the win. And I'll point out, you get a pretty balanced approach from everybody on that roster. 18 points from Zubac. You got Reggie Jackson with 22, Bledsoe with 21, kind of a shocker, and then Paul George, of course, 11 of 25 for 27 points. So they got contribution, pretty balanced scoring. Everybody around 20 points there in that starting lineup. Outside of Batum.
Yeah, right. That's what this. I think Batum is just going out and blocking and stealing everything he can find. But
true.
He would probably steal some of those Happy Meals from Rudy Gobert if he could get his hands on them. This Clippers team, they're so balanced, right? That's a really good word for this team. And late we saw like Paul George get some attempts late. We saw them dump it down to Zubac a couple times late in the game. Reggie Jackson hit a 3, and then he was the one taking free throws at the end of the game. This team they really do just spread it around a lot. It's been pretty cool to see this team, be a team and not just like, oh, they have this star now, Kawhi's out, and so they're just going to be this heliocentric, everything around Paul George. It hasn't been that case so far for this Clippers team.
Yeah. We'll see. That's all the notes I got on them today.
on the other side, Miami, they get 30 and 11 from Bam. I think one of the cool things about the season so far is Bam's development as an offensive player. His little post up around the rim, turnaround, jump shot thing has been really, really good this season. He hit that a couple times in this game. When he played the Mavs recently, he hit that shot a bunch. And I think that's a really big thing for this team if they're going to go far in the playoffs.
Definitely need him to kind of take that next step. It's fun when you see these skilled bigs, defensive bigs, versatile, can do all this stuff. Sometimes they learn about the age that Bam is that, hey, being aggressive is actually it's almost more selfish not to be aggressive than it is to, in many ways. And I think that's a lesson he could probably spend this entire season learning. But you know what? I think Jimmy Butler will help him learn that lesson.
Oh, absolutely. He'll get him in that big face coffee. And that's what gets you really aggressive. You start drinking that late at night. So this game came down to, there's just so many incredible plays down the stretch here. Clippers were trying to dump it down to Zoo. They were just trying to get fouls. It seemed like Reggie Jackson hits a 3 with 1:50 left. The Clippers were up 108-100, and you're like, ooh, they're starting to run away with this. And then all of a sudden, you go down the other end. Kyle Lowry gets a 4-point play. Zubac fouls him on the 3-point line after Kyle Lowry hits a 3. He hits the free throw. You go back. Kyle Lowry gets an and one again after Paul George misses a step back 3. It's just like Kyle Lowry taking up down the stretch, and then Lowry gets a steal, and you're like, oh, they're gonna go ahead. And all of a sudden, then he can't get the Heat can't get the offense to go. And then Reggie Jackson hits some free throws down the stretch. Miami can't inbounds it at the end, and then the Clippers get the win. But Lowry just down the stretch was just absolutely awesome. It was great to see.
It was a real Barnes burner.
It was great to see him. However, man, I was like advocating so much for the Mavericks to sign Lowry, and apparently they came in second or whatever that was the report or the rumor. But
right, I saw that.
Man, just seeing him do really well is that one hurts. For the Mavs. All right, last one here. We'll get to the Scotty Barnes burner. The Philadelphia 76ers fall to the Toronto Raptors. Raptors win 115-109 in this one. And a Sixers crowd in a tight game is awesome. Like, we're going to talk about some really good fan bases later, and it was just great. No matter who was playing in this game, because no Joel Embiid, no Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris just came back, but also no Matisse Thybulle in this game as well. Siakam's still out for the Raptors, but this Sixers team, like, they fight, man. Like, they could have just kind of thrown in the towel. They got Andre Drummond could have just like jacked up a bunch of shots and just not cared about the offense. But the Sixers team fought back, and Tyrese Maxey was awesome. He was just so great.
He's got a great floater, man. He's really got an impressive floater. He hit that one quite a few times tonight. Yeah, as you mentioned, they're just so short-handed. I mean, you kind of feel for Philadelphia. They were off to a really great start. One of the stories of the season, you get the protocols. You hit an unfortunate bout with COVID. We're still in this pandemic, and you get 3 straight losses. Granted, it was New York, Milwaukee, Toronto. You'd love those games to be measuring stick games because of how good Philadelphia looked, and those are all teams that are kind of vying for being a home court team in the playoffs. And you don't really get a chance to measure up against them. So now, by the way, those 3 games all at home. Now you get ready to go out on a West Coast road trip. Utah, Denver, Portland, Sacramento, Golden State, and Indiana all coming up. That's just a tough break. I feel for Philly.
Yeah. Go listen to Locked On Sixers with new host Serena Winters. It's going to be interesting to try and figure out what's going on with that Sixers team coming up on this trip. The Toronto Raptors, though, another team like the Clippers, they're just so well balanced, right? They don't have just one guy that kind of takes over for everybody. Fred VanVleet was the leader here, 32 points, 7 assists in this game. Just hit some really big shots down the stretch. OG Anunoby continues his run of he's taking the next step. He may be up there for most improved player, 20 points for him. Gary Trent Jr., 20 points as well. Chris Boucher off the bench, 17 points. Every once in a while, Chris Boucher has a game where you're like, why isn't he better?
So they're doing an interesting thing that I just read about, actually, an article from Michael Pina today. Usually with Toronto is you have to pick between offensive rebounding and transition defense. The Raptors this season have been best at both. They somehow are having their cake and eating it too, as Michael Pina wrote in his story, crashing the boards creatively. And it really requires like incredible game plan discipline. But they've somehow managed to get this. And by the way, they don't have guys that you would think would be great offensive rebounders. It's not like they have an Andre Drummond in there who's just this monster guy or whatever. So it's kind of a unique little profile that you see out of Toronto. It continues to be a creative and unique team.
Well, I've seen Sean Woodley talk about this, like Fred VanVleet in the 6'8s. Like, it just seems like it's,
right.
It's just him and like Precious, Scotty Barnes, OG, and then they'll throw out somebody else instead of Gary Trent every once in a while. And it's just like they have all these athletes just running around the place. I think that really helps that.
For transition defense, there's no question because, you don't really need to have a man. You just get back and everybody match up. I think there is something to that.
Yeah, and that switching and stuff we talked about when playing against the Jazz. But great win for the Toronto Raptors. They continue to have kind of a weird season. They're building stuff there. It'd be interesting to see when Pascal Siakam comes back.
They're on the up, I think. I think they're on the up. I'm buying Toronto Raptors stock.
Ooh. Yeah. All right. There you go. That's the games of the night. Great stuff. Good games. If you're going to want to go back and watch any of those games, the end of the Sixers Raptors game and definitely the end of the Heat Clippers game. All right, let's play a game.
Can I make a request? Because are we going to play the game now or move it to the other segment? Because I was going to say this real or fake game I think is the better segment.
Let's go. Let's do it. Let's go ahead and play this real or fake game.
Okay.
Is the game real or fake? Or are we...
The game is real. The game is real. I got 5 of these for you. You have to tell me, and I don't actually real or fake. We're really just putting these in order. So I don't know why we're calling it real or fake. There's some interesting anomalies. We're 10 games in. You know, you could read into the statistics right now however you want. You could read into the rankings, the standings however you want. The Warriors, Suns, Jazz, they sit atop the Western Conference standings at the moment. Order those into to me, the ones from most real to least real that you're buying their records right now.
So the top 3 teams, the Warriors, Suns, and Jazz, which rank them from most real to least real.
Right. Warriors 10-1.
The NBA is so weird now because my brain immediately goes, okay, well, what do you mean? Real regular season or real playoffs? You just immediately start thinking down that direction because sometimes they're just so different, especially with this Jazz team. Yeah. Man, I'm gonna go Warriors most real, and then I'll go Jazz and Suns in that order.
So that tracks with the point differentials. You know, the Jazz have the Warriors right now the best in the NBA, plus 13.5. That's what they're winning by on average right now. The Jazz next up 7.7, so they're number 2, and then the Phoenix Suns, while they have a better record, you know, they're almost neutral. Here's the one thing I'll say that I don't know that people realize, and it was brought to my attention today by Keith Parrish over at Fast Break Breakfast, really good podcast host. Yeah. The Warriors just played 7 straight games at home. It's their 8th game out of 11 that they've had at home. And by the way, they had an entire preseason at home. Think about that. There's teams that have already traveled 20,000 miles they put on the team travel plane. Golden State's been in the Bay for almost all of the last 2 months. That's a real advantage. So 10-1, maybe not as surprising as you might think, given that.
Yeah, so if you're gonna go down and put like Steph Curry MVP money down on Bet Online right now, it's just because of Aisha's home cooking, right? Is that what you're trying to say?
It might be what's going on. All right, real or fake? The Bulls, the Heat, and the Knicks.
Oh my gosh, Bulls, Heat, and Knicks. The Bulls are real, right? Like Tim Hardaway Jr. after the Mavs got destroyed by the Bulls the other night was like, the Bulls are back. Like, yeah, they are. They really are. 8-3 right now. That's a really good team. They have stars that can score late in games. Vucevic just tested positive for COVID, so they may take a little slide right here. But I think that's that team right there. Heat was the other one?
Yeah, Heat and Knicks.
Man,
both 7-5.
I know, but so the Heat have like missed some players here and there, so I'm not sure that 7-5 is like exactly indicative. But I'll go.
They're sliding right now.
Yeah, I'll go Bulls, Heat, Knicks. That Knicks team, I don't feel great about it because the offseason moves, like, yeah, they bring in Kemba and Fournier and they add scoring, but then all of a sudden do you lose what you are? I'm holding on to that. That was my thing in the offseason, and I'm still holding it for them.
You want to do the rest on the other side? I got 4 more for you, or 3 more for you, and I like them all. They might just take some time.
Coming up, real or fake that Adam likes. We'll talk about that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about betonline.ag, let me tell you about Built Bar. Built Bar is a protein bar. Tastes like a candy bar. One of these advertisers. Coconut Brownie Chunk is back. It's my favorite flavor of Built Bar. And let me tell you, Isaac and I, my co-host on Locked On Mavs, we're about to record our show. We hit record. We're starting to go. And all of a sudden, for some reason, I don't know why, I checked my email for no reason at all. And I saw that Coconut Brownie Chunk was back. And we literally stopped our show and went and ordered Built Bars, the Coconut Brownie Chunk, because they're that good. Go and check them out right now. You will not be sorry. 150 calories, 15 grams of protein, 7 grams of sugar in a bar covered in 100% chocolate. They're great. They're delicious. They're good as a meal replacement for if you're just trying to tide yourself over. They're good for, a snack if you want to take something with you. Built Bar, use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your entire order at built.com. All right, Adam Mares, real or fake? We're playing this game where we're trying to figure out which teams are real and fake. And I guess there's a middle one because there's always been 3, right? There's like a middle team.
Yeah, we didn't spend enough time naming this segment.
We spent more time on the content of the game than the name
of
the game.
really realizing that now. So the 3 teams out west who are right outside of the play-in game, the Spurs, the Blazers, and the Kings. I guess they're right around the play-in game. Spurs, Blazers, Kings.
Oh, that Spurs team that Spurs team is like the definition of a team that tries hard, but they just don't have enough talent, right? It's like the kid in class that like will always like try hard, do the notes, do his homework, but like
They keep losing by 1.
he's getting a C in the class, right? Like he's
Okay.
gonna do all the work and it's not gonna matter. I have to go Blazers number 1, right? Because of Lillard, and maybe they make a trade. I have to go that. Lillard will get free throws eventually, right? Like he'll start.
We'll find out. So hit the Blazers 1. I don't know, man. This one's really tough.
You're gonna put the Kings over the Blazers? You believe in that Kings team?
What's funny is I feel like the Blazers and Kings are such a disappointment, and I feel like the Spurs have just been unlucky. But then if you ask me like the talent wise, the Spurs were by far the last one there. So I don't know, man. These teams are all disappointing right now. I don't know if there's any of them that I'm really buying.
Well, let's stop looking at talent for a second. Look at coaches.
Okay.
Greg Popovich, Chauncey Billups, and Luke Walton. I think I'm going Pop number 1 in that one by far.
This is a tough one, man. All right, Hawks, Celtics, Pacers. This is sort of the East Conference version of this. All of those teams right now on the outside looking in of the playoff hunt. Would not have guessed that. Pacers, Hawks, Celtics.
I know. I was thinking that when we were making this game. I looked at the standings and I said, I follow the NBA like for my career, and I did not realize that all 3 of those teams are not in the play-in. Like if the season ended right now, none of those teams would be in the play-in game. There's 10 teams now that get in the play-in in the East. Oh my gosh, that Hawks team is so weird, right? Because
they're
out of the gate, they destroy the Mavericks, and you're like, oh, this team is ready. They're going to take the next step, but they're really now finding like their Eastern Conference Finals like hangover, basically.
Well, it's funny because Trey did have the famous comment about I'm bored. Like our team, it's hard. The regular season's boring after being in the conference finals, but they're on a 5-game losing streak. Like you better focus.
You got to get in the tournament before you can get to the end of the tournament. Right. That's not boring, right? Oh man, I'll still go Hawks. I think they'll bounce back at a certain point. I'll go Hawks number 1 still. Their point differential's not good. Their defense doesn't look really good right now, but I'll go Hawks number 1, Celtics, and then Pacers.
Okay. Man, the Pacers, I don't know. I have a little faith in this Pacers team. Their numbers look good as well, other than the wins losses.
The Pacers have also lost like a bunch of really close games too, right? They started the season with like 3 overtime games and they lost.
The Spurs of the East, man. Yeah, exactly. All right, my last one for you. Damian Lillard, Trae Young, Luka Doncic, all of them having slow starts to the season, not looking like themselves. What's most likely to bust out of their slump?
Number 1, I don't think I've played this on Locked On NBA yet, but
okay, there you go. All right.
Luka number 1, he's getting out of the slump. It's happening. Luka's slump has been a lot of conditioning. He did not come into the season in the best shape.
Every year.
But this season seems to be a little bit worse than even in seasons past. He had, the Olympics and late in the offseason, and then he had like a month before, and he was like, I'm going to take this time to take my break, and just didn't do anything basically. So I'm still thinking Luka's going to play himself in shape at some point. He's going to start to get separation. The Mavericks will eventually knock down some open shots, and his assists will start going up, and then the Mavericks offense will start churning again. They've just been awful at missing wide open threes. So I'm going to do that. I think Lillard comes out of his slump too. I think I'll take him next, and then Trae Young last because he's bored.
Wow.
Because he's bored apparently.
Dallas, by the way, has 5 of their next 6 on the road. But weirdly, listen to the schedule for Dallas. I'm sure you already know this.
Weirdest
schedule. At San Antonio, then host Denver, then at Phoenix, at LA Clippers, at LA Clippers.
Yep.
They somehow have double road back-to-backs against the same team. What a weird schedule.
Yeah, so far this season, if we're going to talk about Dallas, like we have no idea what this team is because they're 7-4, but they've got destroyed by the Hawks, Nuggets, Bulls, and what was the other team they got destroyed by? And they get absolutely destroyed in these games. But the only teams that they've played that are good, they get destroyed. But then Heat, that was the other one. And then they've beaten all these bad teams. And so now this stretch coming up, 2 games against the Suns, 2 games against the Clippers. After that, I think we'll know what this team is, at least for now, until Jason Kidd gets fired or they make a trade. By the way, Jason Kidd will never get fired. They'll just continue to say, well, we're 7-4. Well, we're 7-5. Well, we're
just keep going it forever. It is funny, man. The vibes around what is it? Jalen Brunson's the one who claims to have started Vibes Are Immaculate. But the vibe's not immaculate, it seems, for Dallas for being 7-4. It's a little
The
wild.
vibes are immaculate.
Another great drop.
My favorite drop ever.
I mean, great vibes, no, just great vibes, like great vibes. Yeah, great vibes, no, sensational vibes, and like the vibes are immaculate.
That's one clip. That's not. I didn't cut that up.
It does sound like it's chopped up.
That's Brunson. Yeah. So yeah, I'll take Luka coming out of that slump.
All right.
Hopefully, we hope.
You want to introduce power rankings? Should we get?
I was gonna say you got that was the end of Real or Fake.
That was the end.
The game was in.
All right, game was real bad.
It was a good game. It was poorly named.
It's poorly named. For sure.
All right, let's end here. Top 5 fan bases, because
set the table here.
The LA Clippers had one of the greatest in-game promotions, pre-game promotions, I guess.
Yeah, pre-game.
They want fans to show up to games early because they have this thing in LA where people show up fashionably late, which happens in every arena. It happens in Mavs. I'm sure it happens in Denver. Yeah. It happens in Miami. It happens everywhere. But fans were incentivized to show up early and be wearing Clippers colors. And if you're showing up at least 15 minutes before tip-off wearing Clippers colors, you'll be eligible to win $10,000. $10,000 a lot. You're giving to people just to show up early and on time for your games. I found that incredibly hilarious.
It's a little desperate. It's definitely a little desperate.
So we're doing bottom 5 fan bases.
No, top 5. I did top 5. I'm not a hater.
Best fan bases that don't need this incentive like Clippers fans do.
Yeah, that's what it really is. 5 fan bases that don't need this incentive.
Right.
All right. Number 5, the Thunder. The Oklahoma City Thunder. Twofold here. It's a little bit of a shocker. They're a great fan base, man. Those guys show out. But number 2, where else are they going to go? They're going to be there on time.
The Sooners are good, right? The Sooners.
There's not like, other cities where it's like, hey, that's the 3rd stop on the night. We're going to do this, then we're going to do that. No, it's like we're going to the game. That's what we're doing.
You could go watch Spencer Rattler throw another pick that you thought should be a touchdown.
Number 4, the Utah Jazz.
Oh, this is controversial.
Why is that?
Their fans have not been known to be the best.
Well, this isn't like, are they going to behave themselves? Do they need to be at the arena to be incentivized to show up?
Fair, true.
They're going to be there early and screaming obscenities.
Following in line with what else are you going to
do? Also as well. Number 3, I have to tip my hat to these guys. They showed out in the playoffs last year. I was very impressed. The Phoenix Suns fan base showed out, man. They impressed me.
That is a good fan base. They'll get after you on Twitter and social media and all that.
Number 2, the Toronto Raptors. You know why you have to get there so early for the Toronto Raptors?
The North.
You have to get through Jurassic Park, and it's crowded. There's 20,000 people outside the arena you have to navigate through just to get inside. So they get number 2. Number 1. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Bing bong.
Oh!
The New York Knicks losing their mind over a 7-5 team. Everybody's going crazy. They're going to be there and be there early. The New York Knicks get number. They've been great. They've been a great fan base so far. They win it, Dan. They get it. They get number 1.
It's always better when the Knicks are good. It's always better when they're playing in Madison Square Garden.
Oh wow, that might have been worse than the Barnes burner. Your New York accent.
I went really Boston there.
Go a little Boston.
Oh, yeah. Of course, the Knicks fans. Of course. By the way, I think Bing Bong is dead after the Cavs tweeted it out when the Cavs beat the Knicks. I think that's when Bing Bong died.
Bing Bong died.
There you go. All right. That was Locked On NBA on a Friday. Love to have some fun at the end there. Go listen to Locked On Mavericks. Go listen to Locked On Nuggets. Great stuff. 5 days a week. We will be covering our teams. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On NBA. Boom.